mic. Yeah. All I need is one mic. Yeah. All I need is one mic.
Hey everybody, welcome back to One Mic, where I watch shit so you don't have to. And today I'm here to talk about episode 4 of Disney and Marvel's new series Hawkeye, entitled Partners. Am I right? I think the title's pretty obvious here. There's constant references to the idea that Kate and Clint are partners, which Kate constantly brings up and Clint constantly shoots down. And then ultimately it kind of ends in a very definitive, we are not partners, get out of here kind of reaction. And that's kind of how we close. No, it's not kind of how we close. It is how we close, with Clint basically kicking Kate out and saying like, okay, shit's getting too real. You got to go. I thought this episode was just okay. This felt like kind of like a transition from the first 3 episodes into the last 2. It felt like a bridge. Like we didn't get very much of the things that I found enjoyable in the first 3 episodes. And we also didn't really further some of these plot lines very much. It's like we just kind of like tease them and then set them up to kind of get fulfilled in these last 2 episodes. So, for instance, the rooftop fight scene, like between Maya, Kate, Clint, and Yelena, it felt pretty uninspired, which is messed up considering how much I liked the car chase scene from the first episode. And I feel like, when you have Black Widow, when you have Hawkeye, and you have these characters that they don't have superpowers, they're just badasses, so to speak. I want these hand-to-hand fight combat scenes to feel better. And I didn't really like this one. Like, it was kind of like, okay, this is happening. We gained very little new information, which I already mentioned. And even the intrigue of the cliffhanger from episode 3, I felt like this landed flat. Like, we have Jack with the sword, which I've already established. He's a character called the Swordsman. So he has already has a history within Hawkeye lore. So I already know he's a bad guy. I know he's already good with swords. They've done this already with the fencing scene. So for him to like have the sword to Clint's throat at the end, and with them having like a history in the comics, it made me think like, okay, something cool should happen here. And the episode opens right with that scene, and it's immediately diffused. Like Kate walks in, her mom Eleanor walks in, and this completely becomes like, oh, just a misunderstanding. We were just here doing stuff, and now we're having fun and joking around, and everything's fine. And I was expecting like for episode 3 to end like that. It felt dramatic, like something serious is gonna happen, and we're gonna have the way these events play out are going to be far more interesting than they were. And it immediately opened the episode with like completely erasing the tension of the cliffhanger. I feel like that got the episode off to a bad start. And that's for me, having watched them on the day that they dropped with a whole week in between. Can you imagine being somebody who binges this show and then ends episode 3 like, oh shit, what's going to happen? And they go right into episode 4 and all that tension and drama is instantly evaporated. Like, I don't know. I felt like that was not the best idea. Maybe have them fight first or something and then diffuse it. But it's instantly like, hey, aren't you Hawkeye? Yeah, I'm Hawkeye. Oh, big misunderstanding. Like, okay, well, why'd you make the end of episode 3 feel like such a big deal then? Like, well, I know why, but I mean, like, I don't know. It was an unsatisfying conclusion, I think, to that cliffhanger. So I usually save like my random thoughts for the end of these videos when I do them, but I kind of want to do them here just because I don't know, for some reason, I feel like these are things that they kind of feed into what I was saying about how this episode doesn't really do too much on its own. And it just kind of like seems to transition and bridge between episodes 3 and 5, kind of like here's setups for the last 2 episodes. So the first thing is that I'm starting to wonder if Kate's mother, Eleanor, is less of I don't want to say a victim of Jack, but that's kind of how they built her up. Kind of like, Jack comes into her life and he's suave and he's cool and all this good stuff. And then Kate's like, you fool, he's a bad guy. Why are you trusting him? Why are you dating him? And they're kind of setting up Eleanor as like an unwitting kind of like victim of his. And I'm starting to wonder if Eleanor is less a victim and more of an accomplice. Or accomplice sounds weird, like they're like a villain team. But like, oh, I guess that is kind of what I mean. But like if they were like kind of like working together, and Eleanor is actually not a victim and she's more of a bad guy. I don't have any evidence for that. It's just kind of like a vibe I got in the aftermath of the the breaking in, cliffhanger or whatever that we started the episode with. The conversations that she had with Clint, they felt a little bit more like, I want Kate to stay out of my business for her safety than I'm concerned about Kate's safety, if that makes sense. Like, I don't want her getting tangled up in this fuckery that I'm doing. I don't want her to know about that. So you keep her out of it. It felt more like that. Like, it felt almost kind of like devious than it did concerned mother. So I'm wondering if she's a little bit more involved than the show has led us to believe at this point. And then I also noticed the scene that they kind of played just for laughs, kind of like a throwaway, same moment here, when Jack says popular phrases incorrectly. Like he says, life is too short, you never know what you're gonna get, and absence makes the heart. Well, no, not absence. It was, let me see, I wrote it down. No, I didn't. I don't know. I can't remember what, I don't know. He fucked up absence makes the heart grow stronger. It was absence makes you live longer or something like that. I don't know. But absence makes the heart live longer. I can't remember. But whatever it is, he fucked up. It doesn't matter. And it was kind of played for laughs. But I'm wondering if that's something that's going to come back around later. I feel like it probably is. Because why do you put that in there just to kind of like humanize him and make him like, oh, look at him. He's a casual, goofy fuck up. Like, no, I'm thinking like, we might end up with a scene later where like there's some masked person or something like that. And during their typical villain monologue, they say a phrase incorrectly and it's going to clue everybody in that the person in the mask is Jack. Like something like that. Like, I feel like we're setting that up and I'm wondering if that's the case. And then lastly, I don't know why. And I know these videos don't get a lot of play. I feel like no one's going to see this anyway. But if you watch this video, what did you think about Clint, and I don't know if you saw it, drinking his coffee out of a Thanos was right mug? Because I like integrating pop culture. It's kind of like a wink and a nudge at the audience, like, haha, we know about the whole Thanos was right thing on the internet. But it's hard for me to believe that an Avenger who lost his whole family would drink out of a Thanos was right cup. Especially since, really, we all know Thanos was wrong, and not from a ideological perspective, in that like, okay, we don't have enough resources to take care of the amount of people that we have. That is fine, and we all agree that killing off the half the population was not the right thing to do here. But even from a perspective of like that wasn't the right thing to do, there's a very viable and sensible right thing to do, which is to just make an infinite supply or increase the supply using the gauntlet. So like, I don't really understand how someone who lost their family needlessly for 5 years would say, well, I agree with Thanos' principles. Like, come on. Like, I don't know. I don't buy that Clint would drink out of that mug. I don't buy that anybody would drink out of that mug, honestly. We would as fans, because we think it's like, oh, it's like Thanos ain't all wrong. But at the end of the day, the simple solution is to increase the resources, not decrease the amount of people. But yeah, I thought that was kind of weird. Anyway, I said we learned very little, which is true. I really think the only thing that we learned is that Sloan Limited, LTD, whatever, they are laundering money for the tracksuit mafia, and Jack is the CEO, which is conveyed. This is found out by Clint's wife, and it's conveyed by Clint to Kate. And we learned that, and then we learned that the watch that the tracksuit mafia was looking for at the beginning has some significance, and that Maya at the time had the watch. Did she get the watch? I'm assuming she has it, but that's pretty much all we learned. And to me, that set up like, okay, what's going to happen with this watch, as opposed to like really giving us, because we already knew the watch was important. So now they just had the characters acknowledge that the watch exists, as opposed to moving forward how is the watch important storyline. So that's like an example of what I mean by a transition or a bridge, because like I said, we already knew that. And then, like I said, we don't know anything else about the watch. We spend a lot of time on this subplot of Clint wanting to get his arrows back, and the idea that there's a limited amount of arrowheads. And again, I feel like this is going to come back around. But again, that's why I say it's a bridge. It felt like they were setting up something for later, as opposed to like actually giving us something important in this episode. So like, it's the same thing that I was saying about the idea of maybe like Jack messing up these phrases. felt like a throwaway kind of like haha scene, but it might come back around later. That's how I feel with this arrow thing, like these arrowheads, and it's like, oh, we got to get more of them. We got to get them back because I have a limited supply. Well, okay, one, how convenient, but then two, this was a completely uninteresting aspect of this episode, and they're using it, I think, to set up something that'll be interesting in these last two. We finally get Yelena, but did anyone not know that was going to be Yelena in that mask? Like, as soon as, like, okay, so we hear Clint fighting over Kate's earpiece. We clearly see Kate is fighting Maya. So then we go, who? I assume there was a bunch of people fighting Clint. And then we see him fighting just one person. I'm like, well, that's going to be Yelena. And then I'm wondering, too, how we're going to integrate Yelena into this show with only 2 episodes left. And then we also know that, why am I drawing a blank on her damn name? Julia Louis-Dreyfus' character that appeared in Falcon and Winter Soldier, and I believe in the post-credits talking to Yelena in Black Widow. We can assume that maybe she sent Yelena after Clint. But then where does Kingpin fit in? Because I feel like Kingpin's going to be here. Or is it Kingpin that sent her and Julia Louis-Dreyfus' character is not going to show up at all? I don't know. But I feel like we're setting ourselves up for a whole lot of potential bad guys that could show up. And I'd much prefer to see Wilson Fisk. So we'll see where that goes. And, oh yeah, and in that vein, we get more teasing on her boss. Clint talks to, what's his name, Kazi, about, you know, how Maya pressing this Ronin thing is going to go left. And that her boss doesn't like this attention, and he constantly refers to the boss as he. Now, I don't know if that's meant to be a red flag, not a red flag, but I don't know if that's meant to be a red herring, I should say, for us as an audience, to where we assume it's a man and then it ends up being Julia Louis-Dreyfus, or if Clint knows who the person is and is just not referencing them specifically so that we can be surprised when we see them. So I'm not sure if it's got to be either Kingpin or Julia Louis-Dreyfus. Fuck, I hate that I can't remember her name right now. But I feel like it's going to be one of those two. I prefer it be Fisk, but I can't really glean anything from the constant he, because he's saying it a lot, Clint is. He's constantly referring this person as he, but I can't glean if it's because he knows who it is and just isn't saying the name, or if he's assuming it's a he to make us assume it's a he, and then they reveal it's not. But either way, I found this episode to be a little lackluster. I hear tell on the internet that episode 5 is supposed to be one of those break the internet kind of episodes. So I don't think you're breaking the internet with rolling out Julia Louis-Dreyfus for a third time, but you definitely do it rolling out Vincent D'Onofrio. So I don't know, we'll see. But yeah, a little lackluster this week. It was just okay, but I'm expecting a pretty strong and a pretty fast-moving and action-packed, action being not just fights, but action is in like just throttling forward of the plot in these final 2 episodes. So I'll see you guys next week for episode 5. Till then, peace.